People who had abstinence-only sex education, what was the most outrageous or untrue thing you were told? We had a teacher unwrap a piece of candy and pass it around the room. The last person was asked if they would eat the candy after everyone had touched it. This was meant to symbolize purity or some shit, but was foiled when my friend ate the candy Lamau at it, just to answer a few extra questions. I believe it was a Jolly Rancher, which made it even funnier. This was definitely well before COVID. I don't believe he got in trouble, but the teacher definitely had to play it off with the "well, that's not the point, but." Answer. Lol. Your friend is an icon. An icon who now has to pay child support because he got that candy pregnant. I was given a diagram of the female anatomy in which the clitoris had been erased, as in someone went into MS Paint and whited it out on a line drawing of the exterior of the vulva. The urethra, vagina, labia, anus were labeled, and then at the top of the labia, it was whited out. The teacher said that you can only really love one sexual partner, and that's why it's so important that your spouse be your first and only partner. One of my classmates raised her hand and said, "My mom died when I was a baby and my dad's been married to my stepmom for 10 years. Does that mean he only loves one of them?" The teacher just looked uncomfortable and moved on to how premarital sex causes depression. Oh good God, poor kid. Those teachings are ducked. My dad killed himself when I was in 4th grade. I went to Catholic school. The nuns still thought it would be appropriate to dedicate an entire class period to talk about how taking your own life was a sin and describe all the horrible things that happen in hell against those who commit this mortal sin. I was freaking 9. After class, I was singled out from my classmates and told to step outside. The nun then proceeded to tell me that I looked distressed and that if I needed to talk, she was there. She ducking knew she was at the fucking funeral. I can't understand how you could be so unbelievably cruel to a small child who is grieving. I'm so sorry this happened to you, it breaks my heart. 3 years ago we lost my 17-year-old niece to suicide. My family is extremely Catholic, so I panicked right before the funeral as I had my 7-year-old with me and was worried there may be some similar themes. There thankfully were not. The priest teared up talking about how special she was and all of her accomplishments, and how much she was loved and all of the things she did to help others. Then he said, but sometimes someone is hurt on the inside so bad that all the love and support and good things are not enough to heal them, and sometimes they just need to go be with the Lord to feel better again. I have never cried so hard in my life. I'm a lifelong atheist, but he got the first part right. Her mother took her life 5 years before my niece, and he was 150% right. She was just too hurt inside, and all the love and support was just not enough to fix her hurt. There was a suicide at my kid's high school last week. Reading this is tough. Don't shower while on your period, you will stop bleeding and then you will have gyno problems. Girls that wear thongs are going to damage their genitals. Shit, I wish a shower would stop the ducking bleeding. My church-based sex ed claimed that foreplay involved things like reciting poetry to one another or playing the violin together. I guess their plan was for us to be so bad at foreplay we'd never have sex. You know what, reading a heartfelt poem to each other and reciting a passionate violin duet before absolutely dicking down sounds like a genuinely great time. I'm just picturing flirty renditions of The Devil Went Down to Georgia. Edit, yes, The Devil Went Down on Georgia, har. Thanks, all 117 people who made that joke. Actual quote from my 9th grade health class: if you have sex, chances are you won't get HIV. But, chances are you will. I've read this several times and I don't think I'm reading this right. In nearly 30 years, I still haven't been able to figure it out. If I figure it out in the next 30 years, I'll tell you. When your penis touches a girl's private parts, she gets pregnant. Somewhat true, but conclusion is wrong. Imagine teaching this to teens, dear God. The takeaway would be that if the privates don't touch each other, then it's fine. If you come in my pussy from a distance, we'll be fine. Trick shot. That you only have a finite amount of love to give, and if you give it away to people before you're married, you won't have any left for your partner. I was also told this, and most importantly that I wouldn't have any love left for God, lol. Condoms have microscopic holes and don't actually prevent pregnancy, and definitely will not stop you from getting AIDS because the virus is so small it will magically go through the latex. This is actually partly true, but they never explain it fully because that would be useful. Latex condoms reliably provide protection against HIV. Sheepskin and other animal-derived condoms do not reliably provide protection against HIV due to small pores present in the material. A sperm gamete is about 5 micrometers wide, while HIV is about 130 nanometers wide. Viruses are very small, so it's possible to have pores of a size allowing one and not the other. This information is important for people who need to use animal-derived condoms due to a latex allergy, but saying it is true of all condoms is false. Usually when talking about latex condoms they refer to rubber balloons leaking air, and yes, they will over time, but the molecules in air are on the picometer scale and so are much tinier than viruses. We were told that hickeys kill you because they cause your veins to burst. Technically they do cause blood vessels to burst, but it's about as dangerous as a bruise. Because it is actually a bruise, right? Literally just a bruise. The devil's bruise. I think the kids who asked were just trying to be funny and get a rise out of the teacher, older lady who was a PE and volleyball coach, but in any case they asked where AIDS comes from and how to avoid it. And this lady, in the year of our Lord 2010, responds, AIDS is caused by homosexuals. That's it. That one kid then yells, she has AIDS. Run. Yeah. I remember my first grade teacher having to sit us all down and tell us we couldn't run around the playground screaming he's got A5s. At each other. Kid at our elementary school was told repeatedly to stop pricking people with a thumbtack. Multiple people, same thumbtack. It was the mid-1980s, at the height of the AIDS epidemic. I don't have a degree in teaching or anything, but maybe start with taking away the kid's thumbtack. Opposite story. I went to a Catholic high school. My health teacher was a progressive. So she closed the door and said, listen, okay, sure, masturbation is a sin or whatever, but it's actually fine. You gotta, clean out the pipes once in a while. Now if your friends ask you to go to the movies and your answer is sorry, gotta stay home and jerk off, probably step it back a bit. Had a sister teach sex ed in a Catholic elementary school. She flat out gave correct names, body parts and their functions. In 4th grade she also explained exactly how to use a tampon. Sounds like she was pissed about the shitty sex ed she received. The school loved to teach sex will always result in pregnancy, and with abortion being the unforgivable sin, you're damned if you get pregnant, same if you terminate it, and a load of other SHT. They changed things after a kid whose folks knew the teacher asked if it happens every time, why don't you have one? Apparently she had been having fertility issues for a while. Edit, his mother and the teacher knew each other and going to assume he overheard their conversations. Edit, yes, the teacher lost her cool and sent him to the office. We never got told anything aside from they were pulling the class. I mean, let's be real, it was a small town about 15 years ago at a religious school, word got out and they had to do damage control. And yes, this kid was ruthless when he wanted to be. If it happens every time, why don't you have one? Apparently she had been having fertility issues for a while, holy shit. That kid just went straight for the jugular and latched right on. Back then we were all too young to really understand, but looking back that kid pulled no punches when it came to some of the stuff he said. Imagine the lack of self-awareness on the part of the teacher with fertility issues though. How on earth did it take a child saying that out loud for her to realize how absurd her teaching was? Yeah, no sympathy for the propaganduse. My girlfriend's sex ed program in middle school included a wedding dress that they splattered with red paint. What the hell happened here? I can't think of anything crazy, but I think it's because we generally weren't told much at all. They tried to scare us, condoms aren't effective, chances are super high you'll get an STD or get pregnant, watch this horrific slideshow of worst case scenario STDs, and then watch this video of crying women who regret the abortion they got after getting pregnant from their first sexual encounter. But most topics were just vaguely circled. Some super uncomfortable, young youth pastor came and educated us, but he would only refer to genitalia as the underwear zone. We were able to write questions on a slip of paper to be answered anonymously, but he only read about 10% of them and deemed the rest inappropriate. Shocker, we had a lot of teenage pregnancies. Edit, also, to clarify, this was a public school with no religious affiliation. But it was Indiana, so. Underwear zone. Hey baby, it's about time we get in the UNDERWEARZONE.